There is a truth that has been hidden for millennia, whispered only in the most secret corridors of ancient wisdom. This truth is not stored in dusty books or distant temples. It pulsates inside you right now, waiting for the awakening of your conscience. When you finally understand this fundamental law, an entirely new world will unfold before your eyes, a kingdom where the impossible becomes inevitable and where you will discover powers you have always possessed, but never knew how to access. Humanity has lived for centuries in a collective illusion, believing that reality is fixed, unchanging, governed by external forces upon which we have no control. We have been conditioned to accept limitations as absolute truths, to seek solutions outside ourselves, to deliver our power to systems, institutions, and circumstances. But what if I told you that all this is just a superficial layer of existence, and it turned out that under this apparent solidity is an ocean of infinite possibilities, constantly responding to the silent commands of your conscience? This law you are about to discover operates regardless of religious beliefs, academic background, or social origin. It does not discriminate, do not judge, do not reward the worthy, and punish the unworthy. Like gravity, it is simply a neutral and constant force that rules the formation of reality at all levels. The difference is that while gravity acts on physical matter, this law acts on the most fundamental fabric of existence, consciousness itself. Throughout history, small groups of initiates have kept this knowledge with extreme zeal, not for selfishness or desire for power, but because they understood that this wisdom in the wrong hands could cause more damage than benefit. They knew that before someone could consciously shape reality, he first needed to dominate himself. He needed to develop discernment, compassion, and responsibility. Because when you truly understand this law, you become an active co-creator of the universe. The signs of this hidden truth are everywhere if you know where to look. They are in the impossible coincidences that seem orchestrated by superior intelligence. They are at times when you think of someone and that person calls minutes later. They are in the opportunities that arise exactly when they need them, on the doors that open at the right time, in the words they hear on the street, and that perfectly answer the question that went silent. These are no chance. They are evidence that you are already operating this law, even unknowingly. Modern science began to touch the edges of this truth through quantum physics, finding that conscious observation alters the behavior of subatomic particles. But what scientists are just starting to suspect, the old masters have known millennia for millennia. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter, but the primordial field of which all matter emerges. You are not a passive observer of reality. You are your active architect. At this moment, as you read these words, your conscience is emitting specific frequencies that are literally reorganizing the quantum probabilities around you. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, every intention you are sending waves through the unified field of existence. And this field, like a perfect mirror, reflects back experiences that correspond exactly to the quality of the energy you are radiating. But here is the paradox that confuses most people. You cannot use this law to get what you want through strength or manipulation. She does not respond to despair, greed, or fear disguised as positive desire. The law responds only to authenticity, genuine alignment between its inner being and its conscious aspirations. This is why so many fail when they try to apply manifestation techniques. They try to deceive the universe, without realizing that they are just deceiving themselves. The hidden world that will reveal itself when you dominate this law is not a kingdom of fantasy or escapism. It is a deeper dimension of everyday reality, where each moment becomes meaningful, where each meeting carries messages, where each challenge reveals itself as a perfectly calibrated growth opportunity for its evolution. It is a world where you no longer need to fight the current of life, because it learns to flow with it, directing it through the silent force of aligned consciousness. Get ready for a journey that will transform not only how you see the world, but how the world responds to you. Because since this law becomes part of your experienced experience, there is no return. You can never pretend to be a victim of the circumstances, because you will know with absolute certainty that it is their creator. The first revelation you need to accept is that your mind is not just an information processor. It is a transmitting antenna and receiver operating at specific frequencies. Every thought you generate does not remain confined within your skull. It propagates through invisible energy fields, creating ripples that extend far beyond what conventional science can measure. These ripples interact with other minds, with future events, and the very structures of physical reality. For decades, researchers have documented phenomena that challenge our materialistic understanding of the world. Studies on telepathy, precognition, and mental influence at distance consistently reveal that consciousness operates according to principles that transcend the limitations of time and space. But these are not supernatural powers reserved for a few chosen. They are natural abilities of human consciousness that have been systematically suppressed by conventional education and social conditioning. Imagine for a moment that you are like a radio station, constantly transmitting signs to the universe. The quality of these signs, their clarity, intensity, and frequency, determines what kind of experiences you attract to your life. When your thoughts are chaotic and contradictory, you convey static. When you are focused and aligned with your deepest intentions, you convey a clear and powerful sign that the universe cannot ignore. Most people live in an unconscious state of transmission, sending mixed signs that produce confusing and frustrating results. They want abundance as they worry about scarcity, seek love while carrying unresolved hurts, want success while sabotaging with limiting beliefs. It's like trying to tune multiple radio stations simultaneously. The result is just noise. But when you learn to consciously tune your mental frequency, something extraordinary happens. You begin to notice that the world around you responds in ways that seem almost magical. Right people appear at the right time. Opportunities materialize out of nowhere. Solutions to complex problems arise spontaneously. What once seemed coincidence is revealed as evidence of a universal law operating through its focused consciousness. This law is not new. It has been recognized for spiritual traditions over millennia. The ancient Egyptians called her Ma'at, the principle of cosmic order. Hindus know her as Dharma, the natural law that rules existence. Hermetists coded her in axiom, as above, recognizing that the patterns of the mind are reflected in the external reality. All these traditions point to the same fundamental truth. Consciousness and reality are not separated, but interconnected aspects of a single unified field. Modern quantum physics offers scientific language to understand this ancient wisdom. The principle of non-locality demonstrates that particles can influence each other instantly, regardless of the distance that separates them. The observer's effect shows that the act of conscious observation alters the behavior of matter at the subatomic level. These discoveries suggest that consciousness is not an epiphenomenon of matter, but a fundamental aspect of reality that actively participates in its creation. When you really understand that your consciousness is constantly shaping your reality, a tremendous responsibility reveals itself. You can no longer blame external circumstances by recurring standards in your life. Each toxic relationship, every missed opportunity, every apparently insurmountable obstacle becomes a mirror reflecting aspects of your own consciousness that need to be examined and transformed. This is not a perspective that encourages guilt or self-criticism, but radical empowerment. If you are truly the co-creator of your experience, then you also have the power to consciously recreate it. Each moment offers a new opportunity to tune your frequency, to align your thoughts with your highest intentions, to convey the type of signal that will attract the experiences you genuinely want. The process of mastering this law begins with the honest observation of standards in your life. What themes are constantly repeating? What kinds of people do you attract? What situations do they repeatedly arise, even when you change your environment or circumstances? These standards are like fingerprints of your consciousness, revealing the frequencies you have consistently transmitted. True transformation happens when you stop trying to change the outside world and start working with the inner transmitter. When you clean the frequencies of fear, doubt, and limitation that has unconsciously transmitted, the world around you has no choice but to reorganize to reflect your new inner reality. Before we continue this discovery journey, I would like to make a special invitation. If these revelations are resonating with something deep inside you, if you are feeling that you finally found the answers you are looking for, consider subscribing to the channel. But more important than that, Share in the comments what was the time in your life when you realized that there may be something beyond apparent reality. Was it a premonitory dream? An impossible coincidence? A moment of intuition that turned out to be true? Your experience may be exactly what someone else needs to hear to wake up to this truth. Let's create a community of people who recognize that we are much more powerful than they taught us to believe. The second fundamental principle that governs this hidden law is the understanding that their emotions are not just chemical reactions in their brain. They are magnetic forces that literally reorganize the quantum field around it. Every emotion you experience issues a specific energy signature that attracts experiences, people, and circumstances that vibrate at the same frequency. This is why people living in consistent emotional states tend to attract similar life patterns, regardless of their external circumstances. Consider for a moment two people facing similar financial challenges. The former lives in constant anxiety about money, obsessively checking his bank account, losing sleep with concerns about the future, feeling the victim of an unfair system. The second, while recognizing the same practical challenges, maintains an inner sense of confidence, sees obstacles as temporary opportunities, and cultivates gratitude for the resources it already has. Invariably, you will find that your trajectories differ dramatically, not because of differences in external skills or opportunities, but because of the emotional frequencies each is radiating consistently. Emotion acts as a quantum magnet, attracting particles of possibility that align with its vibrational quality. When you feel genuine gratitude, you are not just experiencing a pleasant feeling, you are emitting a frequency that magnetizes more experiences that you feel grateful. When you experience unconditional love, you are in tune with a frequency that attracts more love to your life. When cultivating states of inner peace, it is creating a magnetic field that repels chaos and attracts harmony. But here lies one of the most misunderstood aspects of this law. You cannot pretend emotions to manipulate results. The universe does not respond to your words or conscious intentions. It responds to the authenticity of your emotional state. You can say 1,000 times that you feel abundant, but if under these statements there is an underground current of fear and scarcity, it is this deeper frequency that will determine your experience. This is why so many people fail when they try to apply visualization techniques or positive statements. They try to override positive thoughts about negative emotional foundations, such as trying to build a castle about moved sand. The structure may seem impressive for a while, but inevitably collapses because there is no solid foundation to support it. True work is not trying to feel different emotions, but cleaning the blockages that prevent you from accessing your highest emotional states. Each human being is born with the innate ability to experience love, joy, peace, and abundance. These are not states that we need to create. They are states that we need to discover, removing the conditioning, trauma, and limiting belief that obscure them. Think of negative emotions like clouds that temporarily block the sun. The sun does not disappear when the clouds appear. It keeps shining with the same intensity, only its light is temporarily obscured. Similarly, your highest emotional states do not disappear when you experience fear, anger, or sadness. They remain as their natural state, waiting for emotional clouds to dissipate. The key to mastering this aspect of the law is to develop what the ancient masters called inner witness, the part of you who can observe your emotions without being completely dominated by them. When you develop this conscious observation capacity, you can start consciously choosing which emotional frequencies amplify and which allow them to dissipate naturally. This process does not involve suppressing or denying negative emotions. On the contrary, it involves fully recognizing them, understanding their messages, and then making conscious choices on how to answer. When you feel angry, for example, you can recognize that this emotion is signaling that something important to you has been violated. You can honor this information without allowing anger to become your dominant frequency. Emotional mastery does not never mean challenging emotions. It means developing the ability to navigate through them without losing their connection to higher states. It's like learning to be a skilled surfer who can ride turbulent waves without being overthrown for them. Waves are still coming, but you develop stability and technique to stay balanced. When you really understand that your emotions are active creative forces, not passive reactions, your relationship with them completely transforms. You stop being a victim of your emotional states and become your conscious director. You recognize that every emotional moment is an opportunity to choose what kind of reality you are creating. This understanding brings with it a deep responsibility. You can no longer justify staying in destructive emotional states blaming external circumstances. You recognize that while you can't always control what happens to you, you can always choose how to respond emotionally. And this choice literally determines the kind of future you are creating. The hidden world that reveals itself through this understanding is a kingdom where you become the conductor of your own emotional symphony, consciously leading the frequencies that shape your reality. The third pillar of this universal law is revealed through the understanding that time is not a straight, unchanging line, but a malleable field that responds to the quality of your conscience. This revelation shakes the foundations of how most people understand reality, because we have been conditioned to believe that the past is fixed, the present is fleeting, and the future is uncertain. But when you penetrate the deepest layers of this law, you discover that every moment exists simultaneously in an eternal now, and your present conscience has the power to influence both past and future events. This is not an abstract theory or philosophical concept. It is an operational reality that you can see through direct experience. How many times did you have a feeling that something that happened in the past suddenly made perfect sense in the context of the present? How many times has a decision that made years ago proved to be exactly preparation for an opportunity that came about today? These are not coincidences, but evidence that your present consciousness is constantly reorganizing the narrative of the past and creating synchronicities that connect moments over time. Quantum physics offers fascinating clues about this nonlinear nature of time. Extensive particles experiments show that a change in the state of a particle can instantly affect your intertwined partner, regardless of the distance or time that separates them. Some experiments even suggest that decisions made in the present may retroactively influence events that have already occurred. If this is true at the subatomic level, imagine the implications for human consciousness. When you really understand that your present consciousness is the focal point through which your entire timeline is organized, an extraordinary freedom is revealed. You are no longer imprisoned by past errors or limited by current circumstances. Each present moment offers an opportunity to rewrite its entire history, not changing external facts, but transforming its meaning and impact on your present life. This understanding explains why some people can instantly break free from standards that have imprisoned them for decades, while others remain attached to the same cycles for a lifetime. The difference is not in the severity of their challenges or in willpower, but in the ability to access the transforming power of the present moment. When you truly anchor in the now, with full awareness and clear intention, it can literally rewrite the code of your reality. Consider the nature of memory. Neuroscientists have found that each time you access a memory, it is slightly altered by your present state of consciousness. This means that you are not simply remembering the past, you are constantly recreating it. A traumatic experience of the past can be transformed into a source of strength and wisdom when revisited with expanded awareness. An apparent failure can be recontextualized as a necessary preparation for a future success. Similarly, the future is not a fixed destination waiting to be discovered, but a field of infinite possibilities that collapses in specific reality through the choices you make in the present. Each thought, emotion, and action you experience now are sending waves through the temporal field, organizing future probabilities according to your vibrational quality. This is why practices such as meditation, visualization, and definition of intentions are so powerful. They are not just mental exercises. They are technology of consciousness that allow you to access and directly influence the temporal structure of reality. When you see a desired future with emotional clarity and genuine conviction, you are not just fantasizing. You are literally programming the quantum field to organize events and circumstances that will make this vision a reality. But here's the paradox that confuses many people. The more you cling desperately to specific results, the less likely they are to manifest. This is because despair and need create resistance in the temporal field. It's like trying to force a river to flow faster. The pressure only creates turbulence and obstacles. Temporal mastery comes through what ancient masters called active detachment. the ability to define clear intentions while remaining open to how and when they will manifest. It is like planting a seed with care and attention, then allowing nature to follow its course, trusting that growth will happen in the perfect time. When you dominate this dimension of the law, you find that you can live simultaneously in the present and future. You become completely present for each moment while maintaining a clear view of what you are creating. You honor the past without being limited by it, embrace the present without being imprisoned in it, and shape the future without being anxious about it. This expanded temporal perspective completely transforms how you sail the challenges of life. Current problems are seen as temporary growth opportunities. Obstacles become steps to higher levels of experience. Every moment of difficulty is recognized as part of a larger pattern that is perfectly unfolding for its evolution. The hidden world that reveals itself through this understanding is a kingdom where you become the conscious author of your own timeline, writing a story that honors the past, celebrates the present, and consciously creates the future. The fourth dimension of this universal law is revealed through the understanding that its language is not just a means of communication, but a creation tool that literally shapes the structure of reality around it. Every word you pronounce, every phrase you formulate, every story that tells about yourself is emitting specific vibrating frequencies that reorganize the quantum field of possibilities. This is why ancient traditions considered the word as sacred, recognizing that the power to create and destroy literally lies on the tip of their tongue. When you say, "I can never," you are not simply expressing an opinion. You are issuing a command to the universe, instructing you to organize circumstances that confirm this statement. When he says, "I always have unlucky," he is programming his energy field to attract experiences that validate this belief. When you repeat, "Life is difficult," it is in tune with a frequency that magnetizes difficulties for your experience. His words do not describe his reality, they create it. This understanding explains why people who grew up in environments where limiting language was often fighting with similar standards in adulthood, even when their external circumstances changed completely. They have not only limited beliefs, but linguistic patterns that continue to create the same limitations, generation after generation. It's like loading a defective computer program that continues to produce the same unwanted results, regardless of the hardware you are running. But here lies one of the most liberating discoveries of this law. You can completely reprogram your reality by consciously changing the language patterns you consistently. When you replace "I can't" with "I am learning like," it's not just being more positive, it's literally changing the instructions you are sending to the creative field of the universe. When I change "I have" to "I choose," it is transforming obligation of obligation into empowerment energy. Language operates in multiple dimensions simultaneously. At the most obvious level, it communicates information to others. But at a deeper level, she programs her own subconscious mind, creating perceptual filters that determine that aspects of reality you will notice and which will ignore. At an even more subtle level, it emits vibratory frequencies that interact directly with the quantum field, influencing the likelihood of different events and experiences manifesting themselves in their lives. Consider the energetic difference between saying "I hope it works" versus "I know it will work." The first sentence carries a vibration of uncertainty and doubt, while the second emits confidence and certainty. The universe responds not to the literal content of your words, but to the energy quality behind them. This is why mechanical statements rarely work. They lack the emotional conviction needed to create real change. Linguistic mastery involves developing awareness not only of the words you use, but the energy you put on them. A word pronounced with genuine conviction carries much more creative power than 1,000 words spoken by habit or obligation. It is the difference between a whisper loaded with intention and an empty scream of meaning. Shamanic traditions around the world recognize this power of language through practices such as corners, mantras, and invocations. They understood that certain combinations of sounds and words could literally change states of consciousness and influence physical events. Modern science is beginning to validate this ancient wisdom through studies on how different sound frequencies affect the molecular structure of water, plant growth rate, and even genetic expression in human cells. When you really understand that your words are creation tools, a tremendous responsibility reveals itself. You can no longer use language casually without considering your creative implications. Each conversation becomes an opportunity to strengthen or weaken the standards you want in your life. Every story that tells about yourself becomes an act of programming of your future reality. This linguistic awareness also extends to internal language, the constant dialogue you keep with yourself. Research suggests that the average person has between 50,000 and 70,000 thoughts per day, and most of these thoughts are expressed in internal language. If this internal language is predominantly critical, limiting, or negative, you are essentially programming your subconscious mind with nonsense instructions for thousands of times a day. Transformation begins when you become the conscious editor of your language, both external and internal. You begin to notice linguistic patterns that you have automatically used and make deliberate choices on how to reform them. You develop an empowerment vocabulary that reflects the reality you want to create, not the reality you are trying to escape. This practice does not involve denying real challenges or pretending that problems do not exist. It involves reformulating situations in ways that open possibilities instead of climbing them. Instead of saying, "This problem is impossible to solve," you can say, "This situation is inviting me to discover creative solutions." The difference is subtle on the surface, but deep in its creative implications. The hidden world that reveals itself through this understanding is a kingdom where each word becomes a brush with which you paint your reality, where each sentence is a spell that shapes your destiny, where your voice becomes an instrument of conscious creation. The fifth revelation of this universal law unravels one of the best-kept secrets of conscious creation. The understanding that your attention is not just a spotlight that illuminates aspects of reality, but a magnetic field that literally attracts and amplifies what you consistently focus on. This discovery completely revolutionizes how you understand the power of mental concentration, revealing that where you direct your attention determines not only what you perceive, but what you experience, and ultimately what you become. Most people live in a fragmented state of attention, unconsciously jumping from thought in thought, concern for concern, distraction in distraction. They focus on what they do not want, amplify problems through constant rumination, and feed fears through obsessive attention to the most negative scenarios possible. Then they wonder why their lives seem to be dominated exactly by the elements that fear and hate the most. What they do not understand is that attention operates according to a fundamental law. What you focus on expands. This is not a poetic metaphor, but a literal description of how consciousness interacts with the quantum field of possibilities. When you consistently direct your attention to something, whether positive or negative, you are essentially instructing the universe to bring more of it to your experience. Consider how this works at the most basic level. When you buy a car of a specific color, it suddenly begins to notice cars of the same color everywhere. They were always there, but their attention was not in tune to realize them. Now imagine this same principle operating in all areas of your life. When you consistently focus on abundance, your perceptual filter adjusts to notice opportunities, resources, and possibilities that have always existed but remained invisible. When it focuses on scarcity, your attention becomes magnetized to limitations, obstacles, and needs. But the power of attention goes far beyond selective perception. Studies in quantum physics show that the act of conscious observation literally alters the behavior of matter at the subatomic level. If focused consciousness can influence elementary particles, imagine its impact on more complex systems such as relationships, career opportunities, physical health, and life circumstances. This understanding explains why techniques such as meditation, visualization, and gratitude practices are so transformative. They are not just pleasant mental exercises. They are accurate technologies to redirect the magnetic power of your attention. When you meditate on peace, you are literally attracting more peaceful experiences to your life. When it visualizes success with focused attention and genuine emotion, it is programming the quantum field to organize circumstances that make this success a reality. The mastery of attention requires understanding that there are different focus qualities. Anxious attention, even when directed to positive results, carries a vibration of fear that contaminates the creative process. Relaxed and confident attention, on the other hand, creates a pure magnetic field that attracts experiences aligned with its highest intentions. It is the difference between trying to force a locked door and find the right key. Both may eventually open the door, but one creates resistance while the other flows naturally. One of the deepest findings about attention is that it operates at both conscious and subconscious level. You can consciously focus on positive thoughts for a few minutes a day, but if your subconscious attention is constantly targeted at concerns and limitations, it is this deeper programming that will determine your experience. This is why superficial changes rarely produce lasting transformations. True mastery comes through the development of what the ancient masters called attention witness, the ability to observe where their attention is being directed without judgment, but with increasing awareness. This quality of conscience allows you to become the conscious director of the movie of your life, deliberately choosing when scenes focus and which allows them to disappear in the background. When you develop this capacity, you find that you can literally sculpt your reality through the conscious direction of attention. Problems that seemed immense begin to decrease when you remove your obsessive attention and redirects it to solutions and possibilities. Relationships become when you stop focusing on others' defects and begin to amplify their positive qualities. Opportunities multiply when you train your attention to recognize and amplify possibilities rather than limitations. This practice does not involve denying challenging aspects of life or living in fantasy. It involves making conscious choices on where to invest the creative power of your attention. You can recognize problems without feeding them with obsessive attention. It may be aware of limitations without making them the dominant focus of your conscience. You can process difficult emotions without allowing them to completely select your attention. Attention discipline is perhaps the most important ability you can develop because it literally determines what kind of reality you live in. When you are truly skilled in directing your attention consciously, you find that you have the power to transform any situation by simply changing where you choose to focus. The hidden world that reveals itself through this mastery is a kingdom where you become the conscious curator of your own experience, carefully selecting the elements of reality that you want to amplify and allow others to naturally dissipate through lack of attention. The sixth dimension of this universal law reveals one of the most transformative aspects of conscious creation: the understanding that your identity is not a fixed feature of your personality, but a fluid energy field that you can consciously reformulate to align with the reality you want to experience. This discovery shakes the foundations of how most people see themselves, because we have been conditioned to believe that we are limited by traces of personality, family history, past experiences, and current circumstances. But when you penetrate the deepest layers of this law, you find that identity is choice, not destination. Each time you say, "I am," you are making a declaration of identity that program your subconscious mind and the quantum field around you. When it claims, "I'm a shy person," he is not simply describing a trait. He is creating and reinforcing an energy pattern that magnetizes experiences that confirm this shyness. When it declares, "I am someone who always fights financially," he is literally instructing the universe to organize circumstances that perpetuate this struggle. Your declarations of identity do not reflect who you are. They determine who you become. This understanding explains why some people get dramatic transformations over relatively short periods, while others remain attached to the same standards for decades, regardless of how many books read or seminars attend. The difference is not in the amount of information they have or the intensity of their efforts, but in the willingness to question and reformulate the fundamental declarations of identity that govern their lives. Consider how identity operates at different levels of depth. At the most superficial level, you have social role-related identities. I'm a father, I'm a professional, I'm a friend. These identities are relatively flexible and may change with external circumstances. At a deeper level, you have identities related to personal characteristics. I am creative, I'm organized, I am a morning person. These are more resistant to change, but can still be modified with conscious effort. But at the deepest level, you have fundamental identities that rarely questions. I am the kind of person, people like me always, I could never be someone. These central identities act as operating system programming, determining what types of experiences you consider possible or impossible for yourself. It is at this level that the true transformation must occur. The mastery of identity begins with the recognition that all its current identities were acquired, not innate. You were not born believing that you were shy, disorganized, or unable to financial success. These identities were formed through experiences, social conditioning, and repetition of mental patterns over time. If they were created, they can be recreated. The identity reformulation process does not involve denying authentic aspects of who you are, but expand beyond the limitations you have unconsciously accepted. It's the difference between saying I'm not a confident person and I'm developing confidence in, or between I'm terrible with money and I'm learning to create abundance. This subtle but powerful reformulation makes room for growth rather than reinforcing limitations. One of the deepest discoveries about identity is that it operates through what psychologists call self-realizable prophecy. When you genuinely identify yourself as an abundant person, you automatically begin to make decisions, notice opportunities, and act in ways that create abundance. When you see yourself as a healthy and vibrant someone, it naturally makes choices that support this identity. You do not need to force behaviors. They naturally emerge from their new self-image. But here is the paradox that confuses many people. You cannot simply decide to have a new identity and expect it to manifest itself instantly. Genuine identity should be cultivated through experiential evidence. You become confident through acts of courage, develops abundance through generous choices, cultivates health through decisions that honor your body. Identity and action are mutually reinforced in an upward cycle of transformation. The most powerful practice to reformulate identity is to start acting as if you were already the person who wants to become, even in small ways. If you want to be more organized, start organizing a drawer like an organized person would do. If you want to be more confident, take a little brave action than a confident person would take. If you aspire to be abundant, make a generous choice that an abundant person would make. Each action aligned with its desired identity strengthens this new programming. This approach works because the brain does not distinguish between real experiences and vividly imagined experiences when they are accompanied by genuine emotion. When you act consistently from a new identity, you are creating neurological evidence that supports this transformation. Over time, what began as a conscious performance becomes a natural expression. The transformation of identity also requires what the ancient masters called the death of the false ego, the willingness to release limited versions of themselves that you surpassed. This can be uncomfortable because these old identities, even when limiting, offer a familiar sense of security. Let them go require faith that something is better emerging. The hidden world that reveals itself through this mastery is a kingdom where you become the conscious architect of your own identity, deliberately sculpting who you are to align with who you choose to be, finding that external transformation is always a reflection of internal revolution. The seventh revelation of this universal law unravels one of the deepest mysteries of human experience. The understanding that your emotions are not simply reactions to the events of your life, but vibratory frequencies that literally attract and create the events you experience. This discovery completely reverses the cause-effect relationship that most people assume between external circumstances and internal emotional states, revealing that you do not feel because of what happens. What happens is widely determined by what you feel consistently. When you understand that emotions are energy frequencies that interact directly with the quantum field of possibilities, a tremendous responsibility and extraordinary power are simultaneously. Each emotional state you keep is emitting a specific signal to the universe, instructing it on what types of experiences organize for you. Fear attracts situations that validate fear. Gratitude magnetizes experiences that generate more gratitude. Love creates circumstances that reflect love back to you. This is not an abstract esoteric theory, but an operational reality that you can see through the careful observation of your own life. Think about the periods when you felt genuinely optimistic and confident. How many positive coincidences occurred during these times? Remember phases when it was dominated by anxiety or despair. How did the world seem to confirm its worst fears? These standards are not accidental, but evidence of how their emotional states shape their external reality. Modern science is beginning to validate this ancient wisdom through fascinating discoveries about how emotions literally affect the structure of your energy field. Research with sensitive equipment shows that different emotional states produce different patterns of electromagnetic radiation around the human body. States of love and gratitude create coherent and expansive fields, while fear and anger produce chaotic and contracted patterns. If emotions can change your measurable energy field, imagine your impact on the subtle reality that surrounds you. But here lies one of the most liberating understandings of this law. You are not a victim of your emotions. Although many people believe that emotional states are imposed by external circumstances, the truth is that you have the ability to consciously choose the emotional frequencies you cultivate. This choice is not always easy, especially when old emotional patterns are deeply rooted, but it is always possible. Emotional mastery begins with the recognition that there is a crucial difference between feeling an emotion and being dominated by it. When you develop the ability to observe your emotional states with witness awareness, you can begin to make conscious choices about which emotions and which allow them to dissipate naturally. It's like learning to be the conductor of your own emotional orchestra, instead of being dragged by the cacophony of automatic reactions. One of the most transformative discoveries about emotions is that they can be cultivated regardless of external circumstances. You can choose gratitude even when things are not perfect. You can access love even when you feel isolated. You can find peace even in the midst of chaos. This ability to generate high emotional states regardless of external conditions is perhaps the most powerful ability a human being can develop. Contemplative traditions around the world have developed sophisticated practices to cultivate specific emotional states. Loving kindness meditation trains the ability to generate unconditional love. Gratitude practices develop the ability to find appreciation even in challenging circumstances. Visualization techniques allow you to emotionally experience desired realities before they physically manifest, creating the magnetic field needed to attract them. But emotional mastery does not involve suppressing or denying difficult emotions. It involves developing a conscious relationship with the whole spectrum of emotional experience. Emotions such as anger, sadness, and fear carry important information and energy that can be constructively transformed. The goal is not to eliminate these emotions, but learn to process them in ways that do not contaminate their energy field with destructive frequencies for extended periods. When you really understand that your emotions are creation tools, every emotional moment becomes an opportunity for conscious choice. You can ask, what kind of reality is this emotion creating? This frequency is aligned with what I want to try. How can I turn this state into something more constructive? These simple but powerful questions can completely redirect the trajectory of your experience. Emotional transformation also requires patience and compassion with yourself. Emotional patterns that have been cultivated over the years or decades do not change overnight. But every moment of conscious choice, every time you opt for a higher emotional response, you are literally reviving the neural circuits that govern your automatic reactions. The hidden world that reveals itself through this mastery is a kingdom where you become the alchemist of your own emotions, consciously transforming low vibration states into frequencies that magnetize extraordinary experiences, finding that happiness is not the result of perfect circumstances, but the cause of increasingly perfect experiences. The eighth dimension of this universal law reveals one of the deepest secrets of conscious manifestation, the understanding that time is not an unchanging line in which you are stuck, but a malleable field of possibilities that can be consciously navigated and influenced through the quality of your presence. This discovery completely revolutionizes how you relate to past, present, and future, revealing that your ability to create extraordinary changes is not limited to what happened before or restricted to some distant future moment, but is totally available in the infinite power of the present moment. Most people live imprisoned in a dysfunctional relationship over time. They carry the past as a heavy burden that determines their current possibilities, project the future as an inevitable extension of present standards, and treat the current moment as a mere point of passage between what was and what it will be. This perspective creates a sense of temporal impotence where real transformation always seems to be out of reach, or should have happened before, or it will only be possible at some point when the conditions are right. But when you penetrate the deepest layers of this law, you discover that the present is not an infinitesimal point squeezed between past and future, but the only place where creative power really exists. It is at the present moment that thoughts are thought, emotions are felt, decisions are made, and actions are performed. It is in now that consciousness interacts with the quantum field to collapse possibilities and experiences. The past exists only as present memory, the future only as a present imagination. All creation happens in the eternal now. This understanding explains why techniques such as mindfulness meditation are so transformative. They are not just relaxation practices, but accurate technologies to access the creative power of the present moment. When you learn to anchor your conscience completely in the now, without being dragged by lamentations on the past or anxieties about the future, you gain access to a pure potential field where instant changes become possible. One of the most fascinating discoveries about the nature of time is that your temporal experience is widely determined by the quality of your conscience. When you are fully present and engaged, time seems to expand, allowing you to experience wealth and depth even in chronologically brief periods. When you are distracted or anxious, hours can pass without a significant impression on your memory. You are not subject to time. You are creating your temporal experience through the quality of your attention. Spiritual masters throughout history have found that high consciousness states can literally change the experience of time. In profound states of meditation, minutes may seem hours, or hours may pass as a moment. These are not distortions of perception, but evidence that consciousness operates according to laws other than those who govern physical matter. When you raise your vibrational frequency, you gain access to temporal dimensions where instant healing, revolutionary insights, and dramatic transformations become natural. Temporal mastery also involves understanding that you can consciously influence both your past and your future from the present moment. This does not mean traveling physically in time, but rather altering the energetic quality of past memories and future projections through the transformation of your present consciousness. When you cure past trauma through the present forgiveness, you literally change the impact these experiences have on your present life. When you view your desired futures with genuine emotion in the present, you are sending information forward in time, preparing the field for these possibilities to manifest. This ability to influence past and future through the present explains why practices such as forgiveness and visualization are so powerful. They are not just psychological exercises, but temporal interventions that reorganize the causal structure of their experience. When you genuinely forgive someone who hurt you, you are not just changing your attitude. You are changing the energy quality of the entire timeline associated with this relationship. The conscious presence also reveals that each moment contains seeds of infinite possibilities. The choice you make now, the thought you choose to think, the emotion you decide to cultivate, the action you choose to take, is literally determining which timeline you will experience. Each present moment is a fork point where future multiples branch, and your present consciousness is what you select which path you will go. When you really understand that power is always in the present, extraordinary freedom reveals itself. No matter what happened in the past, you can choose a different answer now. No matter how impossible the desired future seems, you can take a step towards him now. No matter how limited your current circumstances can be, you can raise your conscience now and access possibilities that transcend these limitations. The practice of conscious presence does not involve denying the importance of future planning or ignoring past lessons. It involves doing these activities from a power center present, instead of being dragged by future anxieties or past guilt. You can honor the past without being limited by it, planning the future without being controlled by it, and living fully in the present without ignoring the other temporal dimensions. The hidden world that reveals itself through this temporal mastery is a kingdom where you become the conscious navigator of the currents of time, finding that every present moment is an opportunity for rebirth, every breath a chance to completely recreate your reality, each now a portal for infinite possibilities. The ninth revelation of this universal law unravels one of the most transformative aspects of conscious creation: the understanding that resistance is not an obstacle to growth, but the mechanism through which the universe offers precise opportunities for you to transcend limitations and expand to higher levels of personal power. This discovery completely revolutionizes how you relate to challenges, conflicts, and seemingly negative situations, revealing that what you resist most contains exactly the keys to your next evolution. Most people operate under the belief that an ideal life would be free of resistance. No conflict, no challenges, no situations that cause emotional discomfort. They spend huge amounts of energy trying to avoid, control, or eliminate anything that generates internal resistance. But when you penetrate the deepest layers of this law, it finds that resistance is like friction that allows a car to accelerate. Without it, there would be no traction for real movement. Consider how resistance operates in different dimensions of experience. At the physical level, muscles grow only when they find enough resistance to stimulate adaptation. Without the constructive stress of the exercise, the body atrophy. At the mental level, intelligence develops only when confronting problems that challenge current abilities. Without increasing complexity, the stagma mind. At the emotional level, maturity emerges only by processing experiences that test their ability to respond wisely, rather than impulsively react. This same dynamic operates at the level of conscious creation. The situations that generate greater internal resistance are precisely those that offer the greatest growth potential. The person who causes his anger is mirroring unresolved aspects of his own shadow. The financial circumstance that generates anxiety is revealing limiting beliefs about abundance that need to be transformed. The relationship that causes frustration is highlighting communication patterns that require evolution. When you understand that resistance is disguised information, each uncomfortable experience becomes an opportunity to discover. Instead of asking, "How can I avoid this situation?" you can investigate, what is this resistance trying to teach me? What aspect of myself need to grow to browse this with grace? What limiting belief is being exposed to healing? One of the deepest discoveries about resistance is that it always points to the next level of mastery that is trying to emerge through you. If you resist public speaking, the universe may be trying to develop your leadership and influence. If emotional intimacy resists, it may be invited to heal ancient wounds and open your heart more completely. If you resist taking financial risks, it may be called to transcend scarcity programming and embrace genuine abundance. The mastery of resistance does not involve eliminating it, but develops a conscious relationship with it. Instead of being dominated by automatic avoidance or confrontation reactions, you can learn to dance with resistance, recognizing it, honoring the information it carries, and using your energy as a fuel for transformation. It is like learning how to use the strength of an ocean current to boost your swimming, instead of fighting it and running out. This approach requires developing what ancient masters called non-resistance. Not the passivity of those who give up, but the intelligent flexibility of those who understand that direct force is not always the most effective strategy. Water can cut through the hardest rock not through direct confrontation, but through patient persistence and constant adaptability. When you learn to flow around resistance instead of attacking it frontally, it often finds that it dissolves naturally. But here is a fascinating paradox. The more you accept and consciously work with resistance, the less resistance you experience. This is because most of the resistance you feel does not come from external circumstances, but from your internal resistance to circumstances. When you stop resisting resistance, a tremendous amount of energy is released for creative solutions. The most transformative practice to work with resistance is to cultivate genuine curiosity about it. Instead of judging it as bad or trying to eliminate it immediately, you can approach it as a scientist studying a fascinating phenomenon. Interesting, I'm feeling resistance here. What may be revealing? What opportunity for growth might be hidden in this experience? This compassionate curiosity creates space for insights that are not possible when you are in fighting or escape mode. You may find that your resistance to a specific person is revealing aspects of yourself that you don't want to recognize. You can see that your resistance to a professional opportunity is based on old fears that do not reflect your current capacities. You can recognize that your resistance to change is protecting a comfort zone that has become a prison. When you develop mastery in working with resistance, you find that it becomes one of your most valuable tools for conscious, lifelong navigation. Like a compass that always points to the magnetic north, resistance always points to areas where growth is possible and necessary. Instead of being an obstacle to progress, it becomes a reliable guide for continuous evolution. The hidden world that reveals itself through this mastery is a kingdom where each challenge becomes a disguised teacher, every conflict an opportunity for integration, each resistance an invitation to transcendence, finding that what you most often avoids contains exactly what you need most for your next evolution. The 10th and last revelation of this universal law unveils the supreme secret that unifies all previous dimensions. The understanding that you are not a separate being trying to manipulate an external universe, but a conscious expression of the creative intelligence itself that rules all existence. This discovery completely dissolves the illusion of separation that maintains most people trapped in cycles of struggle and limitation, revealing that true mastery does not come from controlling external forces, but of consciously aligning yourself with the infinite wisdom you are already in essence. When this truth penetrates beyond intellectual understanding and becomes lived realization, a radical transformation occurs in its relationship with life. You stop trying to force results and begin to allow elegant solutions to emerge naturally. Stop fighting circumstances and begins to dance with the evolutionary flow that is constantly unfolding. Stop seeking power outside of himself and recognizes the infinite power that has always been available through his own awakening consciousness. This is not an abstract philosophy, but an operational reality that can be verified through direct experience. When you genuinely align with this universal intelligence, synchronization becomes common. Solutions appear at the exact moment they need, and doors open in a way that transcends linear planning. You find that there is wisdom operating through your life that is infinitely smarter than any strategy your personal mind could conceive. All 9 previous dimensions of this law converge in this final achievement. His thoughts become expressions conscious of this universal intelligence. His emotions align with the harmonic frequencies of creation. Its identity expands to include its essential nature as creative consciousness. Your relationship with time becomes eternal presence. Its resistance dissolves in fluid acceptance. Every aspect of your experience reorganizes around this central truth. But here lies the more beautiful paradox of this journey. The more you recognize your unity with universal intelligence, the more unique and authentic your individual expression becomes. You are not lost in the cosmic vastness. You find yourself as an irreplaceable facet of the infinite diamond of consciousness. His personality, talents, challenges, and specific journey are revealed as precise contributions to the larger evolutionary symphony that is unfolding through all existence. This realization brings a deep peace that transcends external circumstances. When you know it is an expression of the strength that rules galaxies and orchestrates the growth of each flower, fears about survival and adequacy dissolve naturally. You can face challenges with equanimity, knowing that each experience is an opportunity for this infinite intelligence to express itself through its unique form. Supreme mastery is not about getting everything you want, but about wanting everything life offers as an opportunity for growth and expression. It is about recognizing that their deepest desires are not personal whims, but evolutionary impulses of universal consciousness itself, seeking to know and express themselves through their individual experience. When you live from this understanding, action becomes meditation in motion. Each conversation becomes the opportunity to share love. Each challenge becomes a chance to show wisdom. Each moment becomes a portal for the sacred. You find that spiritual life is not separate from practical life, but the very essence of how you sail relationships, work, creativity, and personal growth. This universal law, in all its dimensions, is not just information to be understood, but reality to be lived. Every principle we exploit becomes a practical tool for conscious navigation of existence. Each insight turns into applicable capacity to create more aligned experiences with their essential nature. The final invitation is for you to recognize that this discovery journey never ends. Each level of mastery reveals new horizons of possibility. Each achievement opens doors for even deeper mysteries. You are not trying to get to some final destination where you will have discovered everything, but boarding an infinite adventure of growth, discovery, and creative expression. Life becomes a sacred laboratory where you consciously experience the laws that govern reality. Each day offers opportunities to apply these principles in more refined and elegant ways. Each interaction becomes a chance to practice love, wisdom, and conscious presence. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to demonstrate increasing mastery. The hidden world that reveals itself through this complete journey is a universe where magic and science meet, where spirituality and practicality unify, where you recognize that it was always both the student and the teacher, both the search engine and what was seeking. You discover that the power to transform your life was not hidden somewhere distant, but it has always been available through your own awakening conscience, awaiting only your recognition and conscious application. This is the universal law that rules every manifestation. You are consciousness through which the universe is known and created, and when you completely align with this truth, it becomes a conscious collaborator in the continuous evolution of all existence.